Okay, so I just wanted to answer the question once and for all. How much does the Camino de Santiago cost? Now, we just got done walking this thing, and although we didn't walk the entirety of it, as in the full 500 miles all the way from the start to the finish, we did walk more than half of it, and the costs were very consistent from day to day, so I think it's pretty easy for us to take how much we spent every single day and kind of extend that out to doing the full Camino to actually be able to answer this question accurately for how much this whole thing is going to cost. So for those of you not familiar with Camino de Santiago, you can check out our whole playlist right here for all of the information about it. So the Camino is a simple life. There's really only 3 major expenses that you have on any given day. Those are your gear.
Looking good.
Thank you, I feel good. The accommodation.
These are really nice. I was not expecting this. Very cool.
And your food or drink that you have every day.
I am so happy to see you.
That's it. There's really not much else to do, and honestly, by the time that you're finished walking every single day, you're not going to have a lot of time to do much of anything else. Most of your time on the way is just spent in little towns or villages as you're going, so it's not like there's a lot of other big tourist attractions to do as you're walking. It's all just food and drink in your hotel. It's this nice straightforward quest for 500 miles where you just do the same thing every single day. Now there are many ways, some say infinite ways, to do the Camino de Santiago, and it essentially starts from wherever you want it to start from. You could start your Camino from the United States and then take a boat over and then walk all the way, or you could cycle it from Amsterdam, or there are a lot of different ways, but the one we're going to focus on is the most popular, most common route, which is called the French way. I'm just going to cover the expenses for walking the Camino, and we're going to assume somewhere between 35 and 40 days, so we'll just put it right in the middle. Okay, the first category is your gear for the Camino. Now you can expect to spend about $400 on gear if you have absolutely nothing. We have an entire video dedicated to exactly what you should buy.
Wow, this is so nicely organized.
To walk the Camino, but just to save you time, I'll just summarize it here and you can check that out if you want more info. You're gonna want a less than 30-liter backpack. You're gonna wanna spend about a quarter of that $400 on shoes. You're gonna want really, really good shoes for the Camino.
Boots are made for walking. This is what they'll do. Sunny days, boots are gonna walk over Spain and stuff.
Make sure you're really comfortable with them. You're also going to want really nice socks, and by really nice I mean some sort of wool blend, some fancy super technology socks. Don't just bring your normal old gym socks on this thing. You're going to want some nice quick dry ones. You're going to want probably about 3 dry fit t-shirts, 2 dry fit pairs of shorts, some big old stupid looking hat, and a lot of sunscreen. That's it for gear. This is a very minimalist experience, and honestly the more you bring, the less of a good time that you're going to have. Not because you'll have too much stuff, but just because you're not going to have time to really use a lot of extra things that you bring. And don't forget, you're going to have to walk 500 miles with whatever you bring, so really, really cut things out. Alright, next up, accommodation, and this is where your budget will probably vary the widest. I'm going to give you 3 different levels here, and we'll talk about how we did it and give you the final number for it all. There are basically 3 different levels of accommodation. You can stay in the auberges or the hostels. These are usually run by volunteers, and they're specifically just for the Camino. As a result, they're very, very cost effective. You'll be staying in sort of hostel style accommodation. There'll be bunk beds and usually no sheets, and you'll have to bring your own little sleep sack thing to sleep in. On average, these will cost about 12 euros per night, or about $15 US. So it's a really, really high value way to do the Camino de Santiago. And then there's a private room in a budget hotel. Now these exist in just about every single one of the villages that you could go to as you're walking the Camino, and they'll normally run you about, say, $40 per night for a single room. These are nice, and we spent most of our time staying in these. The hostels were very nice, don't get me wrong, it was just nice for us to have our own space every once in a while. Next up are the nice private hotels, and you'll be spending at most between $60 and $80 a night to stay at one of these places. They're beautiful, they're comfortable, the Wi-Fi will work, there's air conditioning, just everything you could want in a nice hotel. So to add all these up, if you stayed at auberges or the hostels for the entirety of the trip, it would cost about $600 US for the whole thing. If you're staying at these middle-range budget hotels, you'd be spending about $1,600. And staying exclusively in the nice private hotels throughout the entirety of the trip would cost you about $2,800. So what we did, which was a nice mix of a handful of the really nice upper-end private hotels, a lot of these mid-range budget hotels, and then just a handful of hostels, $1,400 for the whole Camino. Next up is food.
Just more bread.
That's the literal only thing we've eaten since we woke up today. Now this is mostly a fixed cost, as in you're not going to be able to find much stuff cheaper than this or many other different ways to do it. You could go mega budget the entirety of the time and just eat grocery store food, but you'll find it difficult to find grocery stores that 1, are open when you want to get food, and 2, you usually won't find places with kitchens as you're going along this route. Breakfast is going to run you about $4 if you buy it at all. To be honest, most days we just stopped at whatever the closest bakery was and we just bought a big baguette and just chewed down on that as we were walking. Lunch will cost you about $9 to $11, and dinner somewhere between $12 and $16. So that's like $25 a day, and for that amount you're going to be eating really, really well. And honestly, experiencing the food and the drink along the way is one of the major reasons to do the Camino. What? Please, please, please don't miss out on this. But if you're really on a tighter budget, you could easily do this for $10 a day, just eating at bakeries and buying stuff at grocery stores and bringing your food with you as you walk each day. So that gives you a range of about $400 on food for the whole thing if you go very budget the entirety of the time, all the way up to about $1,000 per person if you eat like we did. Now there is another fourth category, I know, I only said 3, but I guess I could lump this in with the gear category first, but this is just kind of miscellaneous. And this is going to be your blister packs, which you're definitely going to have to buy before you leave, and your ibuprofen, maybe a SIM card to pick up any gear you forgot along the way. Just random stuff.
Josh's favorite purchase of the day, carabiner.
You always end up needing carabiners.
Another carabiner.
We ended up spending about $200 on this, and honestly, I think that's pretty normal. Okay, that's it. Let's add this whole thing up. The fully budget version would be about $1,200. I think that's about the minimum that you could spend to do the entirety of the Camino walking. This comfortable middle range version, which is what we ended up doing, you'd spend about $2,500 per person. And the fully upper end, eating out at a restaurant for every single meal and staying at these really nice private hotels, you'd spend about $4,000. I really hope that this is helpful for anybody who's planning on doing the Camino. I know that we were looking for this information before we started. Honestly, we were just kind of guessing at how much this whole thing would cost. So, if you have any questions about any of this, drop them down below, and if you want to check out our other videos, they're up here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, kitty. What do you got to tell us? So many things to say.